Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Today we're answering a question about grounding and about how to deal with grounding in really rough country where it's impossible or impractical to dig a hole for the ground rod, and the ground rod just won't be pounded into the ground. It just won't go. What do you do? Well, there is something you can do. This is from Don DeGidio. Let me just... Okay. This email is from Don DeGidio. He says, Hi, Dave. When installing one of my ground rods, I could only get it down about 18 inches, so moved over a foot and tried again with the same results. For 6 feet on all directions had the same result. So I dug in a narrow trench, a foot deep, and placed the ground rod horizontally. I have always wondered if it would be giving the same performance as one installed vertically. Best regards from Don, WJ3U. Well, Don, this is a common problem. What do you do in extremely rocky ground? I want to introduce you first of all to something you can't do anything right now because your house is built, but if you have a pad for the house lying on the ground out here, okay, and you've got rebar in the pad, okay, rebar in the pad, and then you run a piece of rebar kind of diagonally the length, and then this comes up where it can be attached to. This is called an Ufer Ground. And no, that doesn't stand for anything. Ufer was the name of a guy who came up with this particular method of grounding. He was trying to put buildings in for the Army in Arizona and was having predictable results trying to put ground rods in. So this Ufer Ground is in the concrete. Now, if you think about it, concrete is ground. I mean, it's a bunch of rocks and sand and grit and all that stuff glued together with the cement that hardens and makes the thing hard as rock, which it is. It's rock. It's a conglomerate. And this will act as an acceptable ground rod. It may be that your house has one already. If it does, look in the garage along the walls where they aren't covered over with drywall, and look for a piece of rebar sticking up 2 or 3 feet. That would be the Ufer Ground, and you can attach that to your ground system. It'll be a good addition. Now, with regard to grounds, let's look at grounds that have to lay on the side. A normal ground rod, 8 feet, here's the surface up here, okay, and you attach all your stuff to it here. If you go about 3 feet in any direction, okay, this is really the part of the ground system that is what you are looking for. So you've got about 6 feet from side to side. If you put another ground rod into this area, it's just going to overlap the 2 ground rods and won't make it as effective. But if you go 6 or another 3 feet this way and put a ground rod in here, and then another 3 feet this way, which means there's 6 feet from here to here, then this will act as another ground rod. You can bond the 2 like this, and you have a more effective ground. Now, if you can't do that, the next thing to do is to get a great big machine and drill a hole. that's maybe 6 inches in diameter, like you might drill for a well casing or something like that. Okay, but just leave the rock there as it is. You don't have to put the well casing in, because actually what I'm going to show you makes a little bit better ground. Now if you stick the ground rod in the middle all the way to the bottom and then fill it with concrete, okay, the concrete all the way to the top. Concrete is rock. Okay, so this puts this ground rod very tightly bound to that concrete that's around it there. And this actually, if this is a foot wide hole, this is the same as creating a foot wide, sort of the same as creating a foot wide ground rod and putting it down there. You can always ground to well casings and things like that too. Now the situation that Don is in, his just got rock. Okay, so next to his house, he's dug a trench about a foot deep and placed a ground rod in it. Okay, and then he's got his ground right there. Does that work? Yes, absolutely that works. But I'm going to suggest a modification for it. Because the ground rod is sitting here, you've got your 3 feet here, but you've got inches here. So from the bottom, if you look end on at the ground rod, there's the ground rod, here's the house. You've got a trench that you've got the ground rod in and buried. And this, you get the 3 foot on either side. So you get half a ground rod's worth of grounding off of that. So what you want to do is 2 of them in series. You want to have a, you dig the hole, but you make it 16 feet long. You put a ground rod there and a ground rod here and do all your bonding and connecting here. Okay? And then that will be the equivalent of a ground rod because you get half of it here and the other half over there. And that works fine too. Now, let me introduce you to something you may never have heard of it. I'd never heard of it until I heard of it from Brad Rich, who showed it to me, who used it. This is ground enhancement material, or GEM, G-E-M. You can get this at building supplies and electrical supplies. It's, think of it as a high conductivity cement. So in the trenches that you have dug, mix these up according to directions. Shovel this in so it encapsulates the ground rod. Put as much in as you've got, and then cover the rest with rocks and dirt and things like that. And this basically takes your thin ground rod and extends it out so it's about like that, okay? And you can put this stuff in there. You can pay anything you want for it, as you can see. Look at these 2 places have got the same looking thing for wildly different prices, but they're at electric companies. You can get them. This one on Amazon, you probably pay a fortune in shipping because this stuff's heavy. But you can get this stuff locally from your local electrician. So ground enhancement material is the thing to do. Okay, so I thought I shut that off. Apparently not. Okay, so you've got lots of options, Don, to put that ground rod in. You can put a ground rod in, put ground enhancement material over it, or not. If you do put just dirt in, water it down really good. Not so much because the water is going to evaporate, but you want to get it to fill in, compact the sand and stuff. Now, a lot of soil in the American West is what's called expansive. It gets wet, it expands, which means as it dries, it shrinks and creates cracks and things like that. So every so often, stomp on it so that you're getting the dust in contact with the pole. Okay, so make all of your connectors crimp type connectors. They make many different kinds of ground rod connectors in electrical stores that all clamp on. They use a tool of some kind and clamp it in there. If you've got, you know, you can actually always bend them so that they're sticking up above the surface a little bit, and do that above the surface. Ground rods really are best completely buried. Now, if you're going to do that, you want your connections to be underground, and you want to use the little fuser, whatever it is. It's stuff that it's got thermite in it and copper, and when it burns, it will actually weld copper to copper, all these different parts. And then you don't have to worry about corrosion or anything like that because it's welded. So lots of options for getting those ground rods in. I would urge you to remember that if you've got a house ground over here and you're putting in your station ground over here, run a wire, connect the two. Number 6, stranded. Why do I say stranded? Because the stranded will conduct RF better than the solid will. Stranded, unshielded, let's see, no insulation on the thing, because then that way this piece of wire that's underground kind of acts as an additional ground rod. So there you go. And if you've got an Ufer Ground, say in your garage out over here, connect that over there too. Ideally, you want it all the way around the house, and you want ground rods every 6 feet. That's not going to happen in reality, but you would do that for a communications facility. So, Don, I hope that helps. I appreciate your continuing support. Don is a patron as well as a regular on our Thursday evening live streams, and you can get that one. So, again, 1 ground rod straight up and down, or 2 end to end in shallow trenches with ground enhancement material if you can, and so on. So that ought to give you some ideas for what you can do. And there you have it. I've got a little thing I want to read here about the upcoming giveaway. Okay. Here we go. I want to introduce a new feature of this channel. My study here, my studio, is filled with books and gadgets I've accumulated from having this channel, and it's time to thin the herd, so to speak. I'm announcing my first giveaway to hams in the USA. In the USA, because shipping gets really expensive overseas, and I'm going to pay the shipping. The item to be given away this time is a book called Novel Antennas, okay, from the Radio Society of Great Britain. I think I picked it up at Dayton, probably 2019. Here's how the giveaway works. It's totally free to you. Send a postcard, QSL card, or simple one-page letter by snail mail to P.O. Box 98, Ridgeway, Colorado 81432. On whatever you send, make sure to include the giveaway number, in this case, number 1, your name and call sign and shipping address. Please include your phone number in case I have questions. Please, nothing else. Though if you want to send a picture of you and your station, I might be able to show these during the live stream. Electronic submissions will not be accepted. The drawing will take place on the live stream on Thursday evening U.S. time on August 26th. Note that I pay the book shipping or whatever shipping, so it's totally free to you. I hope to do something like this every month. Note that after the drawing, all entries will be discarded and no information will be kept, transpired, sold, or otherwise dealt with. These I've got a few letters already here. I hope to do something like this every month. Note that after the drawing, we discarded them and no information kept or transcribed. So there you have it. If you would like to support this channel, you may do so by going to dcasler.com/support and picking a way that you find most useful. Please also subscribe and click the bell and click like. Don't forget to comment. Until we next meet, 73.